Good morning, everyone. Today is August 22nd, and we're 2021, and we're very happy to have Desta Barnabe back with us. It's almost been exactly a year since we had her last time, and we're here today to talk about the channeled reflections from higher dimensions, a book channel of channeled messages, and lots of other things as well. But I love that book. And it really does speak to the reader. When I was reading, it seemed like every single word was for me, and I had a lot of questions in my head that I was thinking about that week, and that they were all answered in your book, just like that. Every chapter that I looked at. So anyway, you're a fantastic channel, and we're happy to have you back, Desta. So hello.
Hi, thanks for
Welcome
having
to
me.
Vancouver UFO.
Thank you for having me.
So Desta, for people who don't know you yet, can we talk a little bit about your childhood? And we were just off air talking about your grandma's lake. And I just wanted to give a little bit of background of how you got into all this work. Because I know that your family was involved in the occult as well, or I should say metaphysical, right?
Mhm.
And everything. So talk to us a little bit about your family and how you discovered this kind of subject.
Well, I'm not really sure when it was just part of my life. So I was definitely raised with a family that's very interested and involved in this stuff. My grandma, when she was young, was part of let me think of what it was called, like the Winnipeg Spiritualist Society, maybe. When she was young, and there's a fascinating website with some of the seances and stuff that happened in Winnipeg that huge people from around the world came to. And anyway, so there was a long history even in Winnipeg for us little people in Winnipeg.
They videotape the seances.
They took photographs of them, and
Oh,
they
okay.
have an archive at the University of Manitoba here where they Grant and I were there a handful of times where they had a big display of all the ectoplasm photos from the 1920s. I think it was the 1920s when this was really happening. And I wish I have a horrible memory. I wish I could have known we were going to talk about it. I remember the people that were there, but it was famous people from England and from all over the world that were coming to Winnipeg to go to these seances. And we know where the house is. It was just, over the bridge here, pretty close in Winnipeg. And anyway, so it was pretty big, even in the early 20s. And so I don't remember how my grandma said she got into it herself, but she had seances and stuff in the basement, and her house was haunted. We always knew her house was haunted. And so I was like terrified. I would hear horrible stories. My aunt had many experiences seeing UFOs, as well as, things being in the house or knocking, and tarot cards and smells around certain rooms if she left her cards and didn't clean them, kind of thing. And so I don't even remember when anything started. It was absolutely normal for me and my family
Right.
talking about that kind of stuff. So, but I used to have remember back in the 70s for me when I was a kid. But my grandma had those. I think they were called like psychic. I don't know if they were called telepathy ESP cards. They
ESP
were like
cards.
black and
Yeah,
white
yeah.
ESP cards. So we would go to the lake, and my grandma would like put on some crazy turban and pretend she was like a gypsy or something, and all this jewelry, and we would do these cards, and she would like
Yeah.
hold the car up like Johnny Carson in those days, would hold the car up, to her head, and I would have to try to figure out what the card, try and see if I could guess what the card was or whatever that she was holding up. And so when I was very young, we were, doing stuff like that. And she had seen Charlie Red Star, which is what we were talking about before, which is one of the most famous sightings, I guess, because it was actually captured by, I'm pretty sure it was CTV News. Grant, who I work with, Grant Cameron, wrote a book about it, and he saw it many, many times and was taking hordes of cars out there every night. And I think it was 74 to be watching these, ground lights, what they called it in those days. But CTV News actually captured it, so it was on the news. It was in the paper. Many, many people saw it. One of your people here, Jeff, had said that I think he said his grandparents also had a cottage out there and had seen it too. So it was very prevalent, I guess, in those days. I never knew anyone else who had a cottage who saw it, but my grandma saw it at the cottage at her house in Winnipeg here. And they had a lakefront cottage. And we used to, again, from when I was a very, very, very young, as far as I could remember, like I'm sure I was 6, 7 years old, we used to go there. And that's what we would do every night, is like lay out on the deck. We'd lay out on the deck all day and suntan and like look over the lake and the garden and stuff. And at night we would lay out there all night and wait for the UFOs to come. That's just
Yeah,
what
I
we
would
did.
have loved to meet your grandmother. She just sounds
Yeah,
fabulous.
she just
You
passed
know,
just over a year ago.
I've got, you made me remember a funny story that happened in my family.
Hmm.
My mom was really into all this stuff when I was young, and I never wanted to get into it. I was kind of scared of the things that she was into. And then one day, I think I was about 12 or 14, something like that. One day, her and my brother and a few of our neighbors got together and had a seance. And they had so much poltergeist activity. Things started flying around in the house. All the lights went on and off. There was vortexes of energy in places, and everybody ran out of the house. And my mom became a Jehovah's Witness, and she never
Whoa.
touched it again. She never, ever, ever did those things again. She would say, "Oh, that's the devil. That's the devil." So,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
when the activity starts and they're doing stuff in the house, it's
Oh
pretty
yeah.
hard to think that it's positive beings that are breaking things. My grandparents used to have my like every time I was there, like I don't know if it was specifically because I was so interested and I kept asking, or if I don't know why she was telling me I was so young. My brother as well. My brother's 2 years younger than me. And I still to this day, like I just had a dream a couple of nights ago about this, but I have dreams about their upstairs of their house, which is where my aunts, my 3 aunts, or my mom and my 2 aunts rooms were. And they used to always have dreams, is like the night before someone would pass away in our family. We didn't have a big family, but my grandparents were very social, so they used to always have people over for parties. And my aunt would have dreams the night before people would pass away that their spirit was going to hang out in the house because it wanted to be where all the activity was, or whatever.
Right.
And my grandma would always say, if we would hear things banging around or whatever, she would just say, "Oh, that's just," and it was like friends of the family, don't worry about it. It's
Right.
just, name whoever it was that had recently passed. And they used to do the dishes at my grandma's house. So she would hear like a big clatter in the kitchen, and my grandpa would go running out, and all the dishes that were on the counter were either washed and away, or all the washed and away dishes were back out on the counter. So I don't think they ever had I don't remember them ever saying anything negative ever happened there. She just always really thought it was friends and family who they'd known who had passed away or whatever that were just back in the house. But they would do all sorts of things there. And I was terrified, very interested, and always wanted to hear all the stories and wanted her to repeat the stories. But I had to go there they were at the lake one time, and they called, and my grandma thought she left the stove on boiling eggs or something, and there was no one at home. Maybe my parents were working, and she begged me to go to make sure the stove was off. And I was old. I was maybe 18. I was so terrified to go in the house to turn the egg off. I would like go to the door and put the key in and run back to the street. And then I would go in and open the
Wow.
door, throw it open, run back to the street, go in, run, turn the stove off, go back to the street, go back and throw the pan in the sink and I was like my whole life I was terrified. I don't know why, because nothing ever bad happened, but I saw
That
and heard
wasn't the
things.
lake. That wasn't the lake.
No,
That
this
was
is their
their
actual house.
house.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, right.
yeah.
Well, I did love that when you were talking in your book about, or I don't know if it was your book or an interview, you were saying that that's what your grandma said, is that people that it's the ghosts come and hang out where they feel comfortable. And I had never looked at it that way myself. I had a different idea about ghosts, but actually that makes a lot of sense. That they would want to come and hang around. People say, "Oh, I had a visitation" or something like that, but to, haunting, right? The idea
Mhm.
of haunting and the idea of ghosts being there because they like you,
Mhm.
that's kind of different.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
think
like
and I
that.
think I think she thought it was a comfortable space because they were, like I said, they used to hold parties all the time and it was always like an open house and people could come hang out kind of thing. And
Right.
so yeah, so I again, so and maybe that has to do with, actually I never thought of that, but that's maybe what has to do with my I don't know, belief system or whatever on this, is that I never heard anything negative happening there ever. And I was raised thinking it was just the friends of the family that were there. Not just for my grandma thinking it was, but for my aunt having the dreams beforehand as well. So yeah, because yeah, we talk about that all the time. If there's negative things and if we should be giving them energy and what they are and all that kind of stuff. And I really have hardly had any bad experiences in my whole life,
Right.
or from my immediate family doing things like this, for my whole life. So yeah, I never thought about that. But yeah, she was strongly believed it was just friends of the family.
And how is it that you were so afraid? Because I had a similar thing, right? I was really afraid of these things. When my mom did that stuff, I never attended ever. How did you eventually just break through that to do the work that you do now? Like, what was the thing? What was the change that happened?
It was strangely, I think I was scared of ghosts my whole life. So I slept with a nightlight on until I was 40 years old, which was not that long ago, but I always, and I'm not really I never really thought about it, so I'm not really sure, but I was scared until 2012. I turned 40 in 2012, and in 2012 I had my very first, I had seen UFOs many 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 times before that, but usually just the small lights in the sky kind of thing, not anything big ever. But in 2012, I had 5 nights of very close encounters, you know, uh, with just in this neighborhood here where my house is, and that was the changing point for some strange reason, because I don't know why it was, but they came very close and kind of seemed to, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it, but came so close. They were 20 feet, 25 feet away from me. So they were very, very, very close. And I was not scared until I stood there long enough and they stood there long enough. And I started wondering if I should be scared. And
Mm,
and it was 1 o'clock in the morning and I was just about to go on this big trip. And I was wondering, like, am I being stupid by walking by myself at 1 o'clock in the morning? What happens if they do so? Like, it took a long time for me to start getting scared, but I eventually got scared and ran. And when I ran, they left. Like they went the opposite direction. The second that I started running away, they left. And also the second I started running away, I had an overwhelming feeling. I started like bawling my eyes out and I had an overwhelming feeling of you know like I was very sorry, I was
regret,
scared,
right?
and I wanted, yeah, I was like, oh my god, take me with you. And I started chasing them and I chased them until, and they ignored me of course, but I chased them until they went away. And the next night when I saw them, a totally different ship or whatever, totally different image, um I ran for it. And so I think that was the changing point, because that was basically the time when I slept with all the lights off. Somehow, and then I never even really thought about ghosts anymore. I
Right,
thought everything was aliens instead of ghosts. And instead of
right,
being
right,
scared, because I was kind of forced to chase them because I feel like they left without me or something,
right.
then I wanted to see them. So then I started sleeping with the light off in a pitch black room with my eyes open the whole entire night. And every time I would turn over, in the old days, I would never even put my arm like outside of the blankets because I was scared someone would touch my hand. Now I was like putting my eyes open all the time, all night long, because
Right.
I wanted to see something. So it was really
Oh,
just 2012 was the turning point. It's like very
right.
strange. And then I didn't even think of anything in ghost terms anymore. I thought of it all as in like interdimensional.
Right.
If I were to see something, it wasn't going to be a 3D alien. I still thought it would be it would be like a being, which could be anything, and was more of like an interdimensional being. And I just wanted to see them and wanted them to come get me. So I don't
Right. Well, I wanted to ask you about that. When you say them, did you see, explain how you saw? Did you see a ship coming in and then they got out of the ship, or how was it?
in 2012,
When you saw
like
the ship in
those,
the 2 days? Yeah.
so well, it was so it was 5 days in a row just before I went on my first ever trip to overseas, like trip to Ireland by myself, backpacking by myself. I had a huge bunch of crazy things that happened in my life earlier that year. So it was like I think I've always thought that I was in like a very strange state of mind. I was like nervous to be going on this trip. I was going to be going for 6 months. I didn't have a
Mm,
job anymore. I didn't have a boyfriend anymore. I didn't have, I didn't know what the rest of my life was going to be. I didn't think at 40 years old I was going to be doing any of this stuff. So I was like in a really weird state of mind, scared and worried, and I don't know, not knowing what's going to happen. So I think that's the only explanation I can have of what could have possibly brought it on. But it was every day for the 5 days before I left for my trip. And I was just walking at night because I couldn't sleep because I was nervous about going. And
yeah.
so I was just like walking around, and there was different things. It was different almost every night. There was never the same kind of thing. I told Brian this story once as well. One night, the night that I chased them, the night after the big one, was a gigantic red, gigantic, like I don't know, 10 feet. I thought it was 6 feet because I'm thinking like if I could have like touched it with my hands open as far as possible, but it was like, say 6 to 10 feet, a gigantic red swirling silvery red and sparkling and shimmering ball, like orb, on top of the like man-made lake just a block away from here. And that's the one I chased. But the one the night before that came, started looking at, when I saw it from the distance, it looked like it was you know, like a bobbing thing on the water, like a bobbing, something like bobbing. So I was just like, okay, that's weird. The night before I had seen lights going in all different directions, right? So I'm like, oh, the
Right.
UFOs are here, but just like tiny pinpoints of light, which I'd seen a million times, of course. So it wasn't shocking or anything. I was just like, oh, there they are. But this time, this bobbing thing was going like this, and I thought, for some reason, if you're a UFO, come here. And the second I said that, it was coming,
Right.
it was coming this way. And then the second I said that, it turned and like I made a 90-degree turn and started coming right for me. And I thought, oh, that's weird. It was like the instant I said that. And it had like blinking, I think it was like a green and a white blinking light. And so I thought, like, I think planes have green and red, but it had green and white. And I just thought, oh, it must be a plane. And it's weird because it's 1 a.m, the airport's closed, and this is not a flight path. I live right here, so I know when the planes come and where they go. So I'm like, that's really weird because it's coming right for me. It took a long time to come, and the more it was coming, I was just thinking, oh, if you're a UFO, come here or whatever. And it was doing different things. Anyways, long story. It comes and it sat on top of the elementary school, again, just a couple blocks away from here. And it had changed. So it changed from two blinking lights to two white blinking lights to one white light. And then at one point it split back into two lights. And then I was really thinking, the whole time I thought it was a drone, the whole entire time. And it was the 2012. I don't know even what a drone was. I just heard about them and thought, oh, it's
Right.
like some kid in the community here at 1 o'clock in the morning that's controlling some drone and making it come for me. I had no idea what the range was. I didn't know what they sounded like. I didn't know what they looked like. I didn't know anything about it. I just kept thinking It's weird because it came the second I
But
asked
then
it
it
to come.
exploded into white light for you, right?
Well, once it came and sat on top of the school, I was thinking, that's so weird, because where is the kid? How did he know I was sitting here? Because if he's near me,
Right.
it started, you know, I can't even imagine. It took him like 5 minutes to come, and I don't know how fast it was going, but I mean, I was just thinking, how could a kid be controlling this thing? But I just thought it was the whole time. But it was the brightest, whitest light that I had up till that point that I had ever seen ever. And it just sat on top of the school, and I was in the schoolyard, and it sat there. And I thought a couple of things, like I thought, I wonder what this thing is doing. Like, why is it just sitting there? And then I got in my head, like, we're scanning you. And I thought, that's weird. Why would I have even thought that? So I thought it was me thinking that. And I started getting scared, and it said, don't worry, we're not going to hurt you. And I thought, that's weird. Why would I have thought that? And yeah, and then I just got petrified and thought that I should start running. But the second I wanted to start running, there was, the Oz effect, they say, where I was completely like immobilized. I couldn't move. I was like paralyzed. I couldn't hear. All of a sudden everything stopped. All the noise stopped. My ears started ringing. I thought, like, I had no idea what was happening. So I just thought I was scared. I just thought I was scared, and that's why it was happening. But like, time slowed down so I could feel every millisecond of what was happening, and I couldn't move. And I didn't think I couldn't move. I thought that time slowed down, and I was trying as hard as I could to push my muscles to force myself to start running. But it was like every millisecond I could feel every little tense, or like every I don't know, the tensing of my muscles, like millisecond by millisecond, like slowly tensing, so I could like be, slingshotted off and start running in the opposite direction. And I didn't know what was happening. So, and it didn't really matter, because the second I was like, out of it and started running a couple steps, it was only the like propulsion of the couple steps until I stopped and started thinking, oh my God, don't leave me here. And I was bawling, and I turned, and they had, the second I was released, kind of, they just went back to the place where they came, like, the same direction that they came from. And I was like bawling and chasing them, like, and it happened in 1 second. So like, I don't know. So nothing came out. Nothing, like, I mean, talk to me as in, they said that I'm not going to hurt you, we're not going to hurt you, and we're scanning you, are the only two things that came into my mind, which I never, took me years to even hear that maybe it was them putting it in my mind instead of me thinking it. I just thought I was thinking it and didn't know why I would be thinking such weird things. But yeah, because I thought it was a drone right up until then. I was saying, like, if you're a UFO, come here, because I'd seen UFOs. I didn't actually think it was an actual UFO. I just thought,
Right.
what a weird thing. And like, how do drones work? And where's the kid sitting to know that I'm sitting here, and to have brought it to me? Because he has to be sitting right in front of me then to know where I was. But if he's sitting in front of me, why did it come from, a million miles away? I just didn't understand. But no, it was just a bright white light. And then when it left, I could see the difference of the front of it being a bright white light and the back of it being a red light, a red flashing light. So I could kind of see how big it was, but there was no, aside from a super insanely bright white, clear, the brightest light ever on the front, and a red blinking light on the back, I could see that it was small, like the size of a car, kind of thing. Like, I was trying to picture, if there was someone sitting in it, how big was it? And it looked like, like two people could sit in like the chopper part of a normal helicopter, like a round thing where two people
Right.
just like sit side by side. I figured the light could be on the front and the back could be, and like two people. So, but it was only maybe 25, 30, 35 feet, whatever away. But I figured it was only about that big. So, but I couldn't see what the inside of it looked like. I could just see the white light on the front and the red blinking light at the back.
Well, that's what I wanted to get at, because um people say that well, obviously they forget, right? We're made to forget when we actually get abducted.
Mhm.
So that's a part of your story that you've never really told. And I wondered if you got into the hypnosis things that you've done because you were searching for these things, right? I mean, these experiences make us searchers for, searchers of truth for life,
Of course.
because we don't understand, we want to understand, and we want to put some kind of, face to it. But so have have you been able to go into your experience and see inside the ship, see if you got abducted, see what kind of aliens they were, or anything like that? I've always wanted to ask you that question. So there
Well,
it is. I'm asking
good.
you now.
Good question. I actually never thought of asking why. I don't know. That you're obviously that's an obvious question. It should have been an obvious question for me to ask, because sometimes I don't know what to ask when I'm channeling, and I would sometimes just try to think of things or go onto YouTube to search for things of like what kind of big questions I could ask. I never asked. Okay, I never asked, but I did before I started channeling, which was, a couple of years after that. 1 year after that, I had a reading from some random guy on that I found his YouTube channel, who was channeling. I had a reading from him, and he told me that they were me from the, like I said, and it was so weird because it was a random walk at 1 o'clock in the morning. I just whatever. And he said, you think that it was that you just randomly went outside and took a walk and they happened to be there that one night, but that's not how it works. It was always since before you were born, kind of thing. So yeah, he basically just said, it was like a pre-planned, predetermined, I don't know, like meeting with my future self kind of thing. So it was like
Right.
me from the future coming back to like not necessarily wake me up, but to like have this encounters to make sure that I would be put in a more, I've always been in this, like I've always been interested in this stuff my whole life, but he said it was to make me, more interested or involved or whatever in this community. And so that was like a meeting that was always supposed to be like that. So he says, you think that they just randomly came because you said come here, but you were supposed to meet them. So they were coming for you, you were going for them, and that's why it happened. It wasn't like you like summoned them or you called them or they listened to you or anything that you were supposed to meet. So I guess because I got that kind of made sense to me. I never even thought about asking about it after that. That seemed logical maybe to me. So I've never asked. I will ask at one point. I never even
Well,
thought of it.
I still want to do a regression with you, and I want to try the QHHT method. I've done a few regressions now since we've talked last, and different methods work, but I want to try the one that you do. And that's the other thing that I wanted to segue into is I wanted to ask you a little bit about that work that you do, a QHHT
Yeah.
work that you do, the quantum healing hypnosis therapy, right?
Technique. Yep. Yep.
Technique.
Yeah, it's Dolores Cannon. Many people might know, was a hypnotherapist a long time ago. She passed away a couple of years ago. And she, I guess, invented this technique because she was just doing, trying to like stop people from smoking and like weight loss, like us, stopping from eating too much, stopping from smoking cessation is what she, I think, originally started her hypnosis, like her, her her study in the field with was just that. And then as she was regressing people, or as she was like hypnotizing people, people kept saying things. And she didn't even believe, I think the story is, she didn't even believe in any of this stuff in like ET. She didn't know anything about, she was like in,
Wow.
Eureka Springs, Arkansas is a tiny, we've been there many times, tiny
Mm.
town in Arkansas. And she didn't know anything about this, but she just kept, every time people were under, they would be saying some things like having memories of, not just their childhood, but many lives before, and aliens and abductions and all this kind of stuff. And she was like, didn't even believe it. So anyway, she invented this technique, which is just, the difference in this technique is really just, she wanted people to get in a really deep, theta state, which is a somnambulistic state, which is
Mm.
instead of some regressions, which the induction is very short. So to try to say like, count back from 100 or however people do it, it's very short. And I had been regressed a couple times and it never worked for me because
Mm.
in my opinion, the induction was too short. They're like, count back from 100. Now, what do you see? And I'm like, I'm in the office, like looking at you. Like I never could get
Right.
into it like at all.
Right.
So this is a very long induction, and it's a 2 hour long period of time that people are under. And so there's a long induction followed by a 1 hour past life regression segment. So we go in and usually see 2 or 3 different past lives, depending on how much time, the person takes discussing them. And then after, because then the person has been down for an hour, you're used to how your own subconscious, as she would say, or higher self, as other people would say, you're used to how these images are coming into you. So you've been down long enough that you're relaxed more and you're used to
Right.
how you're dealing with yourself, that then the last hour of the session is when we talk to the person's, subconscious or higher self or whatever, and start asking for healing and start asking questions. So we would say like, Mimi, or Mimi, can I talk to your higher self? And then the person is just like, yes. And then sometimes the voice changes and the person usually refers to themselves as, it's a third person. So your
Right.
higher self would say, she never listens to me. Mimi is always doing this. And she just, so that's when we can tell the person is really, really down, because we're connecting with something that's referring to your body as, in the third person. So it's a 2 hour long regression. And yeah, so I like it because I I was only taking the course in hopes for me to figure out how I could get myself down enough, since these other
Right.
therapists it would never work. And I didn't want to have
Oh,
to keep paying all this money to go to random people that they can never guarantee you that it's going to work, right? They always say it's up to you, which I was
right.
like, well, how can I make myself, how do I make myself make it work? And so I just thought, screw it, I'll just, pay the money and take the course myself, because I think that's the only way that you could figure out what the tricks are for people that are difficult to put under. You can only figure that out if you take the course. I can't figure that out by asking a whole bunch of different therapists, because some of them don't, they're not for free. They're not going to tell you how to help yourself make it work. They just want you to come in and try and then pay them. And then, it
Right.
doesn't ever work for me. So I only took the course to kind of get the like backdoor information as to how it actually works, just because I wanted to personally be able to regress myself. I never
Mhm.
intended to be doing it to other people, but it is the therapy that works out of all the things I've ever done, ever. And I've been taking Reiki classes since I was like 17 years old. And so for 30 years, I've been doing different modalities. And this is the most beneficial to my clients as anything that I've ever taken. So I do it because it helps the most people. But for me, I even taught myself, I think this is how I taught myself to channel. I also taught myself a whole bunch of different things related to this, but it's because of this, because you need to figure out how your brain works, figure out how these like deeper states of, meditation and how your consciousness works really, and ways to tap into it. So I needed to figure that out myself, and which is why I took the course. So, but it's a
Yeah.
extremely beneficial. Like I have clients that you can't even believe. I talk to most of my clients still, they still keep in touch because they were helped so much through this modality that they, they talk like I'm in constant contact with a lot of them still, because they cannot believe the help that it's given them. Obviously not
Wow.
through me,
That's
but through them.
amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I've always been really interested in that therapy, and there's not a lot of therapists. There's not a lot of people that do it. Actually, I think there's maybe one or two in all of Vancouver. Maybe
Mhm.
Toronto's different, but anyway, yeah, that's a very interesting one. And I find that people who've had these experiences, we're always looking for the next thing that's going to help us, right? To get deeper. One thing I loved about your book is that you took all of the paranormal experiences, the alien experiences, even angels, demons, all of the stuff that's in a different dimension, and you say that some of these experiences happen to us to wake us up. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that this is why they happen. Maybe not necessarily that they are what they are, which you mentioned. So if you want to go into that a little bit. Yeah. So do you want to tell us a
Sure.
little bit about that, like your theory about that?
Well, there is a time, so I work with Grant Cameron, right? We discuss all the time, and especially at the time that I was writing this book, the current obsession at that time was trying to figure out what it was, like what is the phenomena, right? What's the intelligence behind the phenomena? And so I was like obsessed with trying to figure that out. And so that's what a lot of questions in that book, because at that time that's what I was interested in. So a lot of the questions that I asked when I was channeling had to do with stuff like that. It had to do with like energy and stuff, like how is there a haunted house, right? Because of, that's how I grew up or whatever. Like if there's a haunted house, what does that mean? What is in the haunted house? Because is there an actual trapped soul of a person that just stands in the corner and like rocks in their rocking chair every night for eternity? Like, is that what the person, like, I was like, what is that people see? Is it actually, like a replay of time? Is it the consciousness of the person and they just really can't get out and they're there for, ever? Or is it like the remnants of the energy of the action of that, which happens so often that people are just picking up on, like an energy pattern stuck in the place, or whatever. But so a lot of the book is those kind of questions, because I was trying to figure out what is it. So what is it? What is it when there's, energy trapped, or when there is energy trapped, how do you get rid of it? And is it like bad to get rid of it? Because are you helping the thing? Because is it really a thing? Is it the soul of someone trapped in a house? Should you be trying to move it along? Because you always feel bad for those ghost shows where they go into these places and they're like, oh, there's a woman who's here, and then they just leave. And it's like, well, like, shouldn't someone be helping the woman who's stuck in this house for the rest of eternity? Why isn't anyone helping her? Like,
Right.
can't you help her?
Go to the light or something, right?
Yes, yes. Because for dowsing, I'm a dowser, and one of the reasons I took the first class I ever took for dowsing was people going with like L rods and going to, this is in, I took one of my classes in England, and there's, of course, the battles and stuff in England. People were going to these like, sites where there was huge battles back in the day and saying like, how many spirits are here? And it's all soldiers. And it's like, 211 or something. And it's like, there's 211 souls from this battle that the guys are still there. Like, that's not right. And
Wow.
and they would move them on. And so I always thought, well, if dowsers can move them on, figure out who's there and then move them on, then why are all these ghost hunter shows, why are they going there? And it's just like it's like an entertainment thing. They're just like playing with the spirits there. But if there's an unhappy spirit there that doesn't know, shouldn't someone be, for me anyways, I just thought like, this is crazy. Can't people be, is that what you should be doing? Going to places and constantly dowsing to see if there's any energy there and just cleaning up the energy, not just for the people who are living there so they can have a clean house, but for the beings that are stuck there, if that's really what's happening. Doesn't it help everyone just from being able to do that kind of stuff? So I asked a lot of those questions because I was really interested in what this phenomenon, like what it is. Is it spirits? Is it trapped souls? Is it ETs? Is it actually ETs? When they come and say like, we're from Andromeda, are they actually from Andromeda? Andromeda? Or all of these things, because there's also people that I know who I wrote about in the book, friends of mine that are like, parapsychologists that are thinking that these hauntings are from beings that maybe are saying that there's something, but there's something else. And that brings up a lot of even people that are channeling, who are channeling something and the being is telling them that there's something. And then, 10 years down the line, they're all of a sudden like, oh, haha, I'm not that, I'm actually this. And it's like, I was just using you the whole entire time. And it's just like, lying the whole entire time. So I was really trying to figure out, so are these things tricksters? is it aliens, ETs, machine elves, from the psychedelics world kind of thing, like the beings that people are seeing when they're on psilocybin and stuff. Like, you have to wonder, it's still like an invisible being. So if everyone is seeing the same invisible being, what does that even mean? Are these people
Right.
going to an actual place and there's these very specific beings in this place? Or is it the phenomena again, because you're on this substance, masquerading as a machine elf, and so everyone happens to see the same thing, which is weird, because why doesn't everyone see the same thing in the UFO world? Two people could be standing there, someone's going to see Jesus coming down and someone's going to see an alien like what is it? Is it the belief system? Is it
Right.
what is the phenomena? So anyways, so I don't know if that answers the question, but I was just fascinated with what is the answer, and what is the answer? I don't know. Like, I don't know, of course, but
Yeah.
I asked a lot of those questions when I was channeling, to try to figure out what the phenomena is, because of course we don't know what it is. We don't know if it's beings that are reading your mind and portraying themselves in what they think you believe, so it is more calming, or maybe scary to you. Maybe they're doing the opposite. If it's a negative being, maybe they look like some scary gray because they're trying to scare you. Maybe they look like a demon because they're, I don't know, or like, are they making themselves look like something to calm you down or to scare you? Or is that what they actually are? Or do they know what your belief system is, and so they're just like pulling this form to show themselves to you as? Or who know, I don't know, of course.
Well, I love the idea that they're doing it to wake us up, right? To make us
Yes.
realize that there's more than this flesh and bone body, that there's other dimensions, other places where we can go. I just love that about
Absolutely, and
about
that's the
people.
main thing, right? Is whatever they're doing. If you study this, if you listen to people's experiences in this community enough, you can really tell that it's something weird, right? We don't know what it is, but there's so many. Every time you hear a new story, you're like, so does that mean that it's very interesting and intriguing to hear these stories of experiencers, because you're always trying to figure out what it is that what the explanation is behind what exactly they are. And I don't know what it is, but that is one of the theories. So of course Grant has his theory of wow, and I do believe that maybe what it is it doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't matter very
Mhm.
specifically. The nuts and bolts of what they are isn't what's important, especially if they're bringing a good message. I stopped channeling for a year, a couple of years ago, and it's because I was worried that maybe I was too open and I was going to attract something that was going to, turn into a poltergeist or some terrible thing in my house. So I
Right.
stopped doing it. But I I started again because my messages are always very like uplifting and positive, and I've never had one bad thing in channeling ever happen to me at all. And so I don't think it matters what they are, and I don't think it's not up to anyone to try proving what they are, because if you're getting information that's helping you in any way, whether it's a positive message or they're giving someone the cure for cancer as a download or something, or whatever it is that is happening, if it's happening in a positive way, I mean, it doesn't really matter what it is. And they say that it doesn't matter what they are. A lot of times, like when I ask, they just say, there's no concept in your head, in your little tiny pea brain that can
Right.
possibly explain what it is that we are. But the fascination that there's some bigger thing out there that is doing
Yes.
positive things in a lot of ways is, that's the whole thing for me anyways. It's like,
Right.
it's so interesting. And if it's all happening for a good reason, who cares what it exactly is? And that's not the point. Maybe the point is to be trying to do good stuff with the information that we're getting, or with the messages that we're getting, or for it to at least help people and make them feel better, right? With hope and stuff for the future and for their lives and their health and everything. So
Well, speaking of hope, I did feel a lot of hope from your book. And one of the reasons was that I started thinking sort of in a cosmological kind of way. You talk about God wanting to experience itself and breaking into a million little pieces, right? Which I believe. I've always believed that. But I didn't quite look at it the way that you were presenting it. And if God is experiencing itself through all of us, then there's really no reason for anybody to be fighting with anyone else and saying, my thing is better than your thing, because there's probably room for every single thing, and
Yeah.
even opposite things and polarized things and everything, because we're exploding from Godhead and we're going in all different directions, then all of those realities exist,
Yeah.
and your book helped me to see that. And I'm really happy that I look at it that way, because it makes me less argumentative. It makes me want to accept everything, right? Like every kind of being, and then this one and that one, and it makes you feel more open, really.
Mhm.
I only have a one or two more questions for you, and then I'm going to open it up, because I know people are dying to talk to you, and I'm taking it up all the time. I wanted to ask you, when you do your channeling work, is there a practice that you do? Like, sometimes people do a meditation practice. They wake up, and when they wake up is when they do their meditation, and before they go to bed, or at a certain time of day. So do you have, like, is it part of a meditation process, or do you get called when a message is coming in?
It's definitely part of a meditation process that personally do at night because I'm not a morning person. And so I don't feel, clear in the morning. I feel clear at night. That's why I was like doing those walks and stuff at 1 a.m, because when everyone else in the
Right.
world seems to be asleep, and it's like, I know no one's going to text me. I don't have to look at my phone. Everyone in my house, in those days, I had a
Mm,
bunch of people living here, and everyone was asleep. So it was like quiet and dark. It just seems to me like, now I can finally, like, not think for a couple hours before I go to bed.
right.
And so that to me is the most comfortable time to do it. But I did really notice that the more I did it, especially the more I used to do it every single day. I don't anymore, but I used to do it every single day, 2 hours every single solitary night. And I certainly did realize that it's not like during the day they were calling me, but I knew the more I was in the zone at night, like, and the more I was doing it when I was doing it every single day. During the day, I was in a crazy state sometimes where the second before anyone would say something, I knew exactly what they were going to say. if
Uh,
if there was a question, if there was a movie, like the second before in the movie, I remember there was a handful of movies at the time. I remember some Will Smith movie, but there was a bunch of things where in the movie they were asking a question like, you want to know how I do this? And in my mind, I would know the answer, the next word that the guy in the movie would say, I knew
right.
what the answer would be.
Yeah.
And driving in the car with my friends and stuff, there was a whole bunch of instances where it's like, that's really weird. I all of a sudden, so that had to do with it, I'm sure, because that's when I was channeling every day. So it's not like I was being called, but it's like I was somehow, you're in the mind frame or the mindset or something where it's, and in these days, I would say, you're more part of the field, you're more into the field, so you can like retrieve information better. I wasn't actively trying to do it, of course. I was like talking to my friends or watching a movie, but I did notice that there was that thing. So it wasn't necessarily a calling, but it was like definitely a knowing. And it's like, are these things, or is the field just like, it's, I don't know, it's like less invisible or less hard to get to because I'm spending so much time at night in that zone. Now I can kind of, it's like I can kind of get to it in the day. I didn't really understand what was happening, but it happened all the time. The more I was doing it at night, the more it would just randomly happen in the day. But
Like
yeah,
little downloads, right? Like little
yeah, I was
downloads
a
on
hundred
mess.
percent. Yeah.
Yeah.
At any time during the day, it doesn't even matter what I was doing. Even I remember I was doing dishes once, and I knew that there was going to be like a white truck was a white. I live on the corner of a street. A white truck is like in 1 second, and there it would come. It was like the second that I was thinking of it, something would happen. But I would think of it, seconds before it would happen. Seconds before someone would say something, I knew exactly what they were going to say, and I exactly knew what I was going to say, and it was like really weird. I was starting to like wonder, when some people start saying they're not sure if they're dreaming when they're awake, and it
Right.
starts slipping into, like, I wasn't getting scared, but I remember thinking about it after it was happening and wondering if I should be getting scared, if I was like not losing my mind, of course, but like slowly, if there was going to come a time when I wasn't going to be sure if I was awake or dreaming, kind of thing, because very
Right.
weird things were happening, and they were happening more when I was doing it all the time. But
Yeah, it
definitely
seems
it's
to be
part of
like
meditation.
sometimes it when people talk about deja vu, for instance, they talk about a glitch in time, right? It's kind of like if you believe that this is a holographic universe, then everything is going on at the same time, but you're aware of things at different times, and then the deja vu happens, and then you slip into something
Yeah,
suddenly, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's
absolutely.
really interesting. It's really interesting to think about all this crazy stuff. It really is crazy stuff.
And there's
I,
no way that other people aren't feeling it. I think
yeah,
everyone feels this all the time. It's just everyone is thinking in their head with their left brain so much. Everyone is so focused and concentrated on, like what groceries you need to get when you walk your dog,
mhm,
whatever, that you never notice it. But I definitely think it's not like any kind of like ability or special state or anything. I think that people are just so distracted that no one realizes. And I think this is happening. That's like the weird thing that I was really thinking, is that this is happening all the time to everyone and no one is realizing it. So then I started thinking, is this the real reality? Is that
mhm.
you're supposed to always know 1 second before every single thing is happening? And are we so disillusioned or like, distracted with 3D world, 3D life or whatever, that we're missing that? And so I really started like, driving myself crazy by trying to wondering, should I be trying to stay in that state more, like, so I'm like, I know every single thing that's about to happen, or is that like cheating your life in some way because you're not getting the experience, as in consequences for your actions and stuff. If you knew the consequence, if you really knew every single thing that was supposed to happen, are you cheating this incarnation that you're having when you're supposed to be learning lessons if you already know it? So I started
Right.
wondering, like, is this the true state? Are you supposed to be trying to figure this out? But anyways, didn't last for that long, but
You were talking about the left brain analyst or left brain. What is it? Left brain.
it's just like the analytical part of your thinking brain. Your left brain is like your right hand, right? So you can remember your
Right.
left brain controls your right hand, and your
No,
right
you
hand.
had a really cool name for it though.
Oh,
You
the left
called
brain
it,
interpreter.
yes, interpreter. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So yeah, your left brain interpreter stops you from going crazy on all the different realities, and kind of keeps you
Yes.
here, right? We're
Yeah, but it also lies to you. That's the funny
yes,
thing
that's
about the
right.
holographic universe. It lies to you, but it's lying to you. Dolores Cannon actually called your left brain interpreter Mr. Stupid, because she's trying to make Mr. Stupid not keep telling you, as your client is getting regressed. You don't want your client, as they're trying to see their images of these past lives, you don't want the left brain interpreter coming to them and saying like, oh, this is craziness, like
Right.
obviously you weren't a peasant 500 years ago, like
Mhm.
stop saying this, you sound insane. Like, you don't want that. So she would call it Mr. Stupid, like, tell Mr. Stupid to go sit in the corner and have a cup of tea or something.
I love that. Yeah.
But it's there to lie to you, because it's there to make sense of this reality so you don't feel like you're going crazy. So
Mm.
it's there to protect you, of course, but in the way, if in consciousness studies, I guess it's like in the way for us, because we're trying to push it away so we could get the alternate experience to see if there is these other realities, or all this other stuff, and it's in our way. So I see it as
Right.
like
Sometimes
a
it'll
block.
tell you, "Oh, you're just making that up."
Yes,
That's not
that's what
true.
it's there
You're just
for. Yeah.
making it up.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
have one more question for you, and then I'm going to open up the floor. The question that I have for you is, we're really in crazy, insane times right now, and you know what I'm talking about. And I was wondering if you've had any messages regarding what we can expect in the next little while. Have you had anything, either hopeful or not hopeful, that you can tell us that?
It's
A message
definitely
that might have come.
a good, I never get anything bad. They don't see anything, they, whoever they are, but like, the messages or whatever are never, ever, I don't even know how to say it, like directed or intended in any way that is ever negative in any way. So I've never got anything like that. But yeah, so they definitely always say that this is the awakening. This is trying to wake people up. You need to have you need to see the polar opposite of everything, which is what we've always needed to see. But it was very easy before. It was very easy to see, it's you need to see the very bad and the very good. So this Afghan, like, I don't even want to talk about anything, political or anything right now, but I mean, that's an easy way, right now,
Mhm.
the Afghanistan situation. We need to see suffering, insane suffering, and, to feel lucky for ourselves. You need to see the dark to appreciate the light, kind of thing. So we need to see the polar opposite in all these different aspects of the world, no matter what it is. You need to see two things so you can choose to be on the side of whatever side you want to be on. And it's not, I hate to make it seem like it, I don't want to make it seem like I preach or something, but like, you need to see the two things so you can choose where you want to go. So every single thing your life is being directed, because every single situation you see, you need to go, is it this or this? Do you want this or this? Do you want this or this?
Right.
Do you want this or this? Do you want this or this? And that's how your little path of your entire life takes off, is for you to be making your own choices. It could be chocolate ice cream or peanut butter ice cream. It doesn't matter what the two
Yeah.
things are. It doesn't have to be the worst and the best, but you need to have constant choices to figure out what direction you're going. And right now, the choices are so polarized and there is such a great divide. You need to see, do you want to be this or this? So, do you want to see the fighting? Do you want to see the suffering, or do you want to help? Do you want to try making a difference? Do you want to, go this direction or this direction? It doesn't have to be just bad and good. Of course, it's anything and anything, but it's helping you figure out where you fit in this reality, how your morals sit, how your ethics are, like where you fit personally. It's not against you versus someone else. It's you versus yourself. It's only about your experience. So you just need to see these two things or five things, and what do you want the best out of these? How do you want to live your life? It's all about directing your own life. And so the messages definitely say that this is the conflict and the suffering that are happening right now are beyond what we've normally experienced. And it's getting worse because it's like kind of like forcing people to figure out what they want to do and how they want to fit into their own reality, how you want to create your own reality of what your belief system is going to be. You're making your belief system and you're creating your reality every single second that you're alive, basically. But it's more extreme now. So it's just basically, forcing us to really know where we sit. It was too easy before. It was too easy to just be like, there's something happening in this part of the world. It's like, I'm not going to pay attention to the news. You can't really not pay attention to the news anymore when there's, everything that's happening right now. So you have no choice but to follow new protocols, new mandates, all this new stuff that's happening. Even if I don't watch the news literally ever. I haven't had TV in 13 years. And, but I have no choice but to know some of the news, because I have to know if I have to wear a mask when I go into a store or whatever, right? There's few things that you can't ignore anymore. So they're being pushed in your face more now to force you to really, for the, not for the people that were being lazy about it before, but it's just this awakening is happening much quicker now. So like the quickening they used to say in the 70s or whatever, like all this kind of stuff is just, we're really obviously, it's very obvious to most people now we're in the middle of something huge. And my messages just say that it is positive because it's just, and it's always positive because it's exactly the way it's supposed to be. Everything is unfolding exactly the way you meant it to be. There's nothing weird or crazy happening. This is how your life is supposed to unfold, or it wouldn't be happening. And but the reason it's happening is just because we're being forced to really make sure that we know which decisions that we're that we're believing in, and we're being responsible for the actions that we're taking, and the things that we're saying to other people, you know, social media and all that other stuff. It's like you're being forced to really own own your beliefs and own what you stand up for and what you believe in. And you're really being forced now, where before you could really get away with not really specifically, like being on the fence for everything. You didn't have to
Mhm.
really make that many decisions. Now more people feel like they have no choice but to be really like deciding what they want to do, what they want to stand for, what they want to believe in, how they want to co-create the reality, and owning it.
Well, thank you very much. So great to talk to you, Desta. And I'm
You
gonna
too, Mimi.
just let everybody else talk to you now, and I'll stand back. But thank you so much for answering my questions.
Aw, thank you for having me.
Okay, guys, come on. I'm sure you have a million questions.